Hi besties, my name is Maddie and welcome back to my channel. So today is day 2 of Bookmas and we are going to be going over the 18 books that I read in November. So I almost got through my entire November TBR, which I was so happy about. The only two I didn't get to were The Kingmaker and A Little Life. So let's jump right into the 18 books that I read. So I started off my month with The Tearsmith by Aaron Doom. So I rated this book 3.5 stars. It was okay. I think I was expecting a little bit more from it. So this is an adopted sibling relationship. So this follows Nika and Nigel, and they're both from this orphanage where they're not treated well at all. Eventually, I think she's 17, 18, around that age, and she finally gets adopted, and then so does Nigel, the same family. And they don't really get along for some unknown reason at the beginning. A little bit of enemies to lovers in there. You have the forbidden aspect. I thought it was really cute. I liked it. I enjoyed the story, but I just thought it was so long. So that could just be a personal problem for me. But I'm gonna tell you right now, the movie was not it. Okay, I read this and then I watched the movie. Didn't hit how I wanted it to hit. This one was okay, and I'm glad I got it off my TBR. Then I listened/read to Sinner by Sierra Simone, and if you're going to read this book, listen to it because Jacob Morgan's voice is phenomenal. So this follows Zenny and Sean, and Zenny is going to be a nun, and she's always devoted her life to God and has always known her path, I guess you could say. And Sean is just this playboy who kind of does whatever he wants. I don't know if it's her nun or I don't know what they're called, her teacher in the church tells Zenny that she needs to go out and live her life and figure out if it's okay giving up everything, because she's never ventured outside of the church. So she asked Sean, because Sean is her older brother's best friend. She's like, you won't hurt me. Can you kind of just have a little friends with benefits, if you will, type of relationship with me? And he's like, no ma'am. But she slowly persuades him, and he ends up being like, okay, I guess I will. Guess I'll help you out there. And it is so much fun. There's age gap in here. You have brother's best friend. You get the forbidden aspect because she's going to be a nun. Such a good time. Highly suggest the audiobook because this man narrating. And I had no idea that this is all in his POV, which I loved. I loved that so much. I don't know why I didn't know that. Highly recommend. Oh, and I also rated this book 4 stars. I don't know if I said that at the beginning of this. Now we gotta talk about my favorite read of the month. I think this is my only 5-star that I read, and it was phenomenal, and I want to read it again. So I read Lost and Lassoed by Lila Sage. I obviously rated this book 5 stars. And this follows Gus and Teddy. And Gus has always kind of done things on his own. He's a single dad running a farm, ranch, business thing. And he's always just kind of done it on his own, but he's slowly drowning, and everyone around him is like, you need some help, my guy. Why don't you get a nanny? Gus's younger sister's like, listen, Teddy needs a job, which Teddy is her best friend, and Gus and Teddy don't get along at all. And she's like, she needs a job, why don't you just have her nanny for you? She already knows your daughter, she loves your daughter, there's not a stranger's coming into your house. And he's like, the spawn of Satan you want me to have watch my daughter? Absolutely not. But obviously he kind of falls for it, and he's like, okay, I guess that'll be fine. And it's their relationship, and it is so much fun. It is so cute. I love this entire series. I love Rebel Blue Ranch. I love her writing. I mean, a single dad will do it for me every single time. One of my friends read it and was texting me about it, and she's like, I cannot wait for you to read this. And I was like, no, I'm gonna wait a few more days. I want to be able to sit down and annotate. Wrong. I got up off the couch no less than 10 minutes later, and I read it in 24 hours. I stayed up till 2 o'clock in the morning. I couldn't put it down. Highly recommend this book. Highly recommend this entire series. And I cannot wait for book 4. The way I'm going to be so down bad for Dusty. Highly recommend. Then I have King of Sloth by Anna Wong. I rated this book 4 stars. So this is the 4th in her King of Sin series. And this follows Xavier and Salome. And Xavier is this wild partier. He's a playboy, doesn't really care about anyone. And Salome is his publicist. And she is an ice queen. She's cold. She's calculating. She doesn't really care about anyone else. And they are going to kind of work together to clean up his image to help him kind of get his inheritance that's in this clause for him. These books in this series have been hit or miss for me. I loved book 1 so much, and then I think it was book 2 or 3 that kind of fell off for me, but I really like this one. For the most part, I've always loved her writing. I think her stories are really easy. I think they're entertaining, but the books are getting so long. I don't know why I didn't pick up on that in the Twisted series, but these books are extremely long books sometimes, and sometimes that kind of takes away from the story because I feel like it could be wrapped up earlier. That's just my personal opinion on them. Then I read/listened to The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sang-Young Mandana. So I rated this book 4 stars. This follows our FMC Minka, and she is a witch, but she's like a witch in hiding, and she has this little YouTube channel where she pretends to be a witch, but she's actually a witch, so she's actually doing witch things, but lying and saying she's not. But then someone reaches out to her and is like, hey, I know you're a witch. I need you to come to this little like orphanage house thing and teach these 3 young witches how to be witches. And at first she thinks this is like this huge scam, like, oh, they're trying to find me out. But then she ends up going and she's like, oh, okay, I can try to help these young witches try to figure it out. And it's her little story with them. There's like a little subplot of romance in there. I mean, I love these little girls so much. They were so much fun. They were so funny. They were so cute. One of them, oh my goodness, she had me cackling just how kind of rude she was. I loved it a little bit, the little defiance in her. Highly recommend it. It's like a YA fantasy. Super easy read. The audiobook was really good. If you like The House in the Cerulean Sea, I think you would also really like this one. Then I read Collide by Bal Cabra. I don't know if I'm saying that name correctly at all. I rated this book 3.5 stars. It didn't hit how I wanted it to. I half read, half listened to this one. So this basically follows Summer and Aiden. Summer has sworn off hockey. She wants nothing to do with it. It's not her vibe. And her professor or teacher or something like that tells her, well, that's too bad. You have to like do your research paper on the captain of the hockey team or something along those lines. So that person is Aiden, and Aiden doesn't really care, and he's like blowing it off. But then they're gonna have to like work together, and then they kind of create a little relationship through that. It was kind of boring. I feel like it wasn't my favorite. I feel like it was trying so hard to give her like angry black cat energy, but it just wasn't hitting the mark. Overall, it was a fine book. It just isn't one that I will ever think about again. And I don't know if I want to continue on with the series. I might, just because the other books do look cute, and maybe just the first one was just a little rough for me. So take that as you will. I have Monarch by Sophie Lark. I rated this book 4 stars. So this follows Alana or Alana, I can't remember what her name is. And she is basically a mail order bride for this man. And once she comes to the States, he is not who she thinks he is at all. I mean, he's so rude to her. He's very standoffish. He's very creepy. And she's like, what did I get myself into? And they're staying at this hotel while their house is being built. And at this hotel is Atlas, who owns this hotel. And he is kind of going to be her saving grace through this. And she's going to kind of form a relationship with him. That's all I'm going to say, so I don't like spoil anything. And I had such a good time with this. I love her writing. I love that there's pictures in her books. I love that this book was actually at my library. Like, I thought that was so exciting. So much fun being able to see like Sophie Lark's books in my library. I love that. I think it's the perfect book to read like during fall time. So, you know, I don't know if you want to jump into it in the middle of winter, like come December, but I still highly recommend. I really like that she's doing kind of like a Halloween type series where I think she's having books come out every October that's in this little series. Highly recommend Grimstone. I love that one. That's the first one in the series. If that piques your interest at all, I don't know, you might want to save it till next fall. Then a book that took me by surprise. So then I read Carrie Soto Is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I read / listened to this one. I rated this one 4.5 stars, and I was so shocked by it because sometimes her books are hit or miss for me. I was a little nervous, not gonna lie. So this follows Carrie, and she is like this very famous tennis player. She like holds like some world record, and someone is going to be beating this world record this year. So she decides she's going to come out of retirement and try to win again, and that's all I'm gonna say on it. It is so much fun. The last line of this book, I was fuming, but I still loved it. I loved Carrie. I love that she took no crap from anyone. I love that she stuck to her guns. She didn't care what anyone thought about her, and she was just going to do how she wanted to like do it in her own way, and I love that for her. Highly recommend this. Then I read Two Wrongs Make a Right by Chloe Leese. I rated this book 4 stars. I had such a good time with it. So this follows Jamie and Bee, and they kind of like bump into each other at like a party and believe that they would never work together at all. Like, they don't think they're compatible, nothing like that, until their friends kind of try to set them up. So they basically decide that they're going to hatch a plan to like pretend to date, to prove to their friends that they are not meant for each other, and then they're going to break up in like this huge way to kind of stick it to their friends and say like, why are you trying to set us up together? You guys aren't matchmakers. And it's their little fake dating story, and I thought it was so cute. The representation in this book is so so good. I felt so deeply for both of these characters. I truly felt their connection. I had such a good time with it. I believe this is my first book by her, and I enjoyed her writing. I thought the book was fast-paced. I wasn't confused. I enjoyed the banter. I enjoyed the side characters too. The little plot twist that happened towards the end also shook. Then I read Morbidly Yours by Ivy Fairbanks. I rated this book 4 stars. I got this book from my library. And this follows Callum and Lark. And Lark has recently lost someone close to her. So she hightails it to Ireland for a new job opportunity. And she ends up staying in an Airbnb right next to a funeral home, which is what Callum owns and works for. And in Callum's little inheritance clause, I guess you could say, he needs to be married by the time he's 30 in order to keep said funeral home. So Lark and him kind of form a little relationship, a little friendship, and she decides that she's going to help him find a wife in order for him to keep said funeral home. And as they work together, feelings kind of develop. You kind of maybe a little bit of friends with benefits happening. I thought it was so much fun. I loved Callum. He was so stoic and broody, but not mean, but grumpy. I don't know. I really enjoyed his character. I loved Lark. I felt for her so deeply throughout this book. Okay, then I read 2 books in a part of a little series, so I'm not going to be able to say too much about book 2 without giving away what happens in book 1. So I listened to So Wrong and So Real by Abby Millsap. So Wrong is the first one, and this follows Hunter, Greedy, and Greedy's best friend Levi, and it is told in past and present timelines. In the past, Greedy and Hunter have a relationship, and they're in love, and then in the present timeline, they have now broken up because of something, and she is now fake dating his best friend Levi. There's a lot going on, there's a lot of things you don't know about that's happening from the past, and there's a lot of things you don't know about that's happening in the present that it doesn't match, So it's very kind of not confusing, but the pieces are all kind of coming together as you're reading it. The plot twist and the thing that happens at the end hurt my soul, not gonna lie. So look up your triggers if you need to, because this cover is so cute. But what it handles is rougher, I would say. And then So Real takes place right after the plot twist that happens in book 1, and it's them navigating this life throughout what has transpired. In all these books, there's wide shoes. In book 2, there's more BDSM, which I was loving. So hot. And I rated the first book 3.5 stars, and then I rated book 2 4 stars. The first book was okay. I think it was just really building up to book 2. And then there's a book 3. I don't know if it's out yet, or it might be. I haven't read it yet. Even more crazy stuff is going on, and I'm getting a little confused. But still, if it piques your interest, the wide shoes, that kind of aspect of it. That was spicy. The smut was smutting, and I was not mad about it. Then I read Pen Pal by J.T. Geisinger. So I rated this book 3.5 stars, and I was kind of disappointed in this book in a few different ways. And I'm going to try my best to describe this book without giving a single plot twist away. So this follows our FMC, and the day that she buries her husband, she gets a letter from prison that's addressed to her, and it's basically saying you are my one true love, I will find you, blah 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 blah. And she's like, who are you? I don't know who you are. And they kind of keep exchanging mail back and forth until one day he shows up at her doorstep and everything kind of explodes. The beginning, I was intrigued. The middle, I was extremely bored. And then the end, I liked the plot twist. I truthfully could not get over the pet names that they had for each other. The relationship that was going on was not my vibe. If I would have just stuck to my guns, I would have guessed the plot twist, and I would have been so proud of myself. But I gaslit myself into thinking something else was going on. Yeah, highly recommend if you have not read it though, just because the plot twist was so good. The story was fun. I just didn't really want the smut, I guess you could say, in this book. Everyone talks very highly about it, so I want you to make your own informed opinion on it yourself. Then I got an arc for Tenure by Violet Pierce, and I rated this book 4.5 stars. So this follows Kiernan and Professor James, and it is a student professor book. You got that huge age gap in there. It is wild. And basically she walks into his math class one day, and he's like, I'm obsessed with her. She is kind of thrown off about it, but then she's like, kind of obsessed with him as well. And they're basically just getting it on the entire time. It's a short little novella. It was so much fun. If you just read it, put your rose-colored glasses on, you're not going to get the tension that you sometimes get. There's no really angst. They're basically in love with each other immediately. And they're getting it on, and I wasn't complaining one bit. Then I read The Game Changer by Lana Ferguson. I rated this book 4 stars. So this follows Ian and Delilah, and Ian has gone through a pretty nasty divorce or breakup in the public eye because he is a famous hockey player, and then Delilah owns this cooking show that's kind of going downhill. Ian is Delilah's older brother's best friend, so they kind of know each other, and they decide that they're going to kind of work together to get her ratings up because, you know, a famous hockey player, and then she is also going to help his image because she is like the golden girl, you know, like the baking world, if you will. So they kind of decide they're gonna like fake date to like help both of them out simultaneously, and it is so much fun. I love Lana's writing. I think her stories are always so entertaining. They're so much fun. They're so smutty, but like the perfect amount of smut. The tension in this, because like she has always had a crush on him, I love that part of it. If you have not picked up a Lana Ferguson book, please do. I highly recommend The Game Changer or The Nanny. I also really like that one. Then for one that was such a huge disappointment for me, so I read The Pumpkin Spice Cafe by Lori Gilmore, and I rated this book 2 stars. So I listened to this on Audible, and I hated it. I'm not gonna lie. It was not good. If I wouldn't have had it on audio, I would have DNF'd because it was horrendous. I'm so sorry. So this follows Jeannie and Logan, and Jeannie inherits her aunt's cafe, and Logan is the local farmer who is kind of down on himself because he's just not doing well. And then Jeannie kind of thinks that her cafe's haunted or her house is haunted, so she makes Logan help her out. And Logan's like, oh, I don't want to help, but I guess I will just for you, yada yada yada. And it's their little relationship. It was boring. I was so bored. I did not like it. Wasn't for me though. Then I read Belladonna by Adeline Grace, and I rated this book 4 stars. This book took me forever to get through though. I just felt like the first half of this book just wasn't for me, but then it really started to pick up towards the end. So this follows Signa, and she is orphaned, and she's always been like bounced around from different families because everyone like wants her wealth or something like that. And then she ends up at the Hawthorns, and the dad is like throwing parties because his wife died, and that's how he's grieving. The daughter is super sick with like this mysterious illness, and then the son is just trying to hold the family together in a way, and she is there to now kind of investigate why everything's kind of going wrong because she can like see ghosts, and she also has death, you know, following her around. Like he's like personified as a person, you know, it's crazy. And they are going to work together and kind of figure out what is going on. And there's also a boy in there that is also helping her, that's kind of part of the family but not really. And there was a lot of twists and turns going on. Sometimes it's very hard for me to follow. This is YA fantasy, but the magic system was, I don't know what it is, I just felt like it just wasn't hitting in my brain how I wanted it to at the beginning. But I will be finishing this series because the plot twist again at the end of this one shooketh to the core. Then I finished my month out with by Emily McIntyre. So this is the 6th in her Never After series, and this is the dark retelling of The Little Mermaid where the villain gets the girl. Or I guess the villain gets the guy in this one. So this follows Vanessa and Enzo, and Vanessa has always just really tried to be good enough for her uncle. She does not have a family. Her mom passes away when she's young, and she doesn't know who her dad is, and she's just always kind of lived in the shadow of her cousin. And her cousin brings home Enzo one day and is like, here's my new fiance. And Enzo and Vanessa kind of have like an instant attraction, instant spark with each other, and it's their kind of story. And I'm not going to say anything else because I don't want to give away like some of the plot twists that happen in this, because I really enjoyed this one. I love her writing. Some of these books didn't hit for me. I did not like Cross, but the rest of them I have honestly loved. I was a little nervous going into this one just because I didn't like the one right before it, but highly recommend this one. The one-liners in here, Enzo had me blushing. Vanessa is like so cool and calculated. Loved her, but I wish she would have stood up for herself just a tiny bit earlier. But again, I would definitely recommend this entire series. It is so much fun. Disney retelling where the villain gets the girl. What more could you ask for? So those were the 18 books that I read in November. As always, let me know what you read in November. What were your favorite books? I always want to know. And as always, thank you so much for watching today's video. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next one. Love yous.